Narcissistic MIL convinced her 11-year-old grandson to lock me in a dark closet as a prank. When my husband refused to help, I called the cops. Me and my husband's family don't have a good history, especially my MIL. A little bit of a backstory: my husband, Kyle, is one of the 2 children in his family. He has always been the golden boy even though he had an older sister. My mother-in-law, Monica, is a full-blown, clinical narcissist. She was the type to demand gifts on my husband's or his sister's birthday, saying that they wouldn't be here without her. My husband has told me previously that while growing up, every time he achieved something, she made it about herself. When I first started dating my husband and coming around his house, MIL was nice as a pie, but her behavior progressively declined as we started to get more serious. She has gotten more and more crazier over the years. It really escalated when we decided to get married 3 years ago. My MIL would interfere and make trying to plan our wedding an absolute nightmare. Thankfully, me and my husband had decided right off the bat to pay for it ourselves to hopefully avoid anyone in our families inserting themselves into the process. Hence, when MIL tried to interfere and change our venue or layout of the wedding, I politely declined her suggestions. She complained to my husband, who tried to talk to me and compromise, but I told him that our decision was final. Now when it came to our wedding, I had always wanted a casual, fun, non-religious wedding and did a mismatched bridal party look from a loose color palette. The only thing I had asked MIL and the rest of my bridesmaids to do literally was pick out a dress that was within my color palette and then just run it by me before they purchased it, so I would know exactly what I was working with. My mother and the rest of the bridesmaids showed me their options, and I never told them no or asked them to change a thing from what they all picked. MIL never showed me any options. I kept asking for months leading up to the wedding and she would find some excuse. On the day of my wedding, my MIL showed up in an off-white dress to everyone's shock. It was a medium-length dress, with a transparent chiffon layer and a bolero. She looked triumphant as she smirked at me when she saw my face. I knew then and there that she was going to be a pain in my ass forever. I burst out crying and my husband immediately asked her to either change or leave the venue. Phil didn't want to drive her back and started to argue with my husband. In the end, to keep the family peace, I let MIL attend our wedding in her dress. I can't even say how embarrassing it was for the guests to notice her dress and be surprised. I ignored her throughout the wedding and didn't speak a single word to her. My husband knew how upset I was, and told me to let this issue go, saying that no matter who wore a white dress, I was the bride anyway. It really upset me that he didn't understand how callous his mother was to wear her dress in a color that no mother should wear to her son's wedding. I decided to forgive her for it, even though she never once apologized to me. Her narcissism didn't just stop there. When we were trying to get pregnant, it was a tough time for us. I had a miscarriage once, so when I found out that I was pregnant again, I was understandably quite nervous. Kyle was super excited to be a dad and understood why we couldn't share the news immediately with our family. He went with me to every doctor's appointment, read parenting books with me, and even set up a cute nursery for our baby. 2 months later, we decided it was time to share the exciting news about my pregnancy with our family. We made sure we crossed the crucial first trimester milestone and were completely certain before spreading the joy to our loved ones. We had invited all our parents, close family, and friends for lunch. They arrived, expecting a regular lunch, but upon noticing my growing stomach, their expressions shifted to expressions of joy and amazement. My mother started crying when she saw me and confirmed that I was indeed pregnant. She understood why we had kept the news secret and was overjoyed to be a grandmother soon. She completely understood why we had kept it a secret and expressed her excitement about becoming a grandmother soon. However, Kyle's mother, Monica, had a completely different reaction. Instead of sharing in the joy, she reacted angrily upon learning that we had kept the pregnancy hidden. She felt left out and accused me specifically of intentionally excluding her. Despite my attempts to explain the reason behind our decision, she continued to look pissed and refused to engage with me further. Her disapproval cast a shadow over what should have been a joyful family occasion. Throughout the night, Monica didn't address me at all. She displayed disrespect not only towards me but also towards my mother, who had always been nothing but kind to her during their previous encounters. Monica remained unresponsive during discussions, buried in her phone while everyone else engaged in the family gathering. It was clear that she was upset, and her discontentment was palpable. She openly expressed to everyone how she had no idea about my pregnancy, making her feel as if she had lost precious time with a grandchild who hadn't even been born yet. My husband and one of his brothers picked up on her frustration. As the tension escalated, I reached a breaking point and decided to step out for a moment to gather myself. My mother, who noticed my distress, came to comfort me until I felt composed enough to return. As the night came to an end, Monica made a deliberate point of saying goodbye to me last. The entire day, she had barely exchanged more than a hi and bye with me. Later, when my husband walked them to the car, they ended up having a heated argument which I could hear clearly standing in the foyer. Monica took the opportunity to vent her complaints about me, further escalating the strained situation. Thankfully, all our guests had left by this moment, so it was just me, my parents, Kyle, and his parents. She angrily told him that she couldn't believe that I had the audacity to keep this pregnancy from her and that I did not consider family at all. My husband calmly let her know that he and I had both decided to wait until we were out of the danger zone and that everything was fine before sharing the news with everyone. Hearing this, Monica started yelling. This is how their conversation went. Monica, this is our grandchild we're talking about. I deserve to know from the very beginning. As your mother, you should have called me immediately with the news. Kyle, Mom, we just wanted to be cautious before giving the good news. Monica, cautious? I am your mother. You should have trusted me with this. I know this is all her fault. You let her dictate whatever she wants. Grow a pair. Kyle's face got red in embarrassment and he looked at his mother miserably as she kept yelling more. I was unaware of the tears streaming down my face. The sharpness of her words had left me hurt and bewildered. I tried to intervene but my mother stopped me by whispering to me that if I said anything right now, Monica would find a way to jump at me. This was absolutely true because I was sure Monica just wanted to fight with me but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I kept my mouth shut. My MIL told him that he should open his eyes to see the truth as he was letting me control everything, and as his mother, she should have been the first to know if her son was having a child. Eventually, my Phil urged my MIL to calm down and drove her away. As you can imagine, this wasn't the last time she acted this way. Her list of blowing things out of proportion and acting entitled has been endless. Here is a list of other things. She tried to go behind my back and teach our baby to call her ma instead of grandma, which absolutely infuriated me. She will beg me to babysit our child and will then make sure that everyone knows how much she helps us around and how we always need her. When I had a few health issues after pregnancy, she would tell me that I needed to be a better mother to her grandbaby and should get over myself. Due to all these incidents above and many more, my relationship with my MIL has never been great, but I continue to tolerate her for the sake of my husband. Now coming on to what happened, my MIL and Phil recently moved into a new place. They had been inviting us to check it out, but we were quite busy so we couldn't meet. Kyle wanted me to go alone with our child, Debbie, but I was hesitant. He urged me to go so that his mother would stop calling him and asking him to check her new place out. Begrudgingly, I agreed to go during the weekend. Debbie had a friend's birthday party to attend that weekend, so I dropped her off and asked my mother to pick her up as Debbie loved spending time with her grandparents. It was a sunny Friday afternoon when I went to check out my in-laws' new place. The property was massive, and it looked like my father-in-law had spent a lot of money on it for his retirement. The house was huge and had a mix of modern and classic styles. The yard was really nice, with lots of green plants and flowers that smelled great. When I got there and rang the doorbell, my mother-in-law opened the door, perhaps thinking it was Kyle. She looked excited at first, but then she saw it was just me. She looked confused and asked me where Kyle and Debbie were. I told her that Kyle had an appointment and Debbie had to attend her friend's birthday. This really upset her and she started complaining about how selfish we all were to not find any time to spend with her. I tried to change the topic awkwardly by telling her that I was there and that I would love to check out her new place. She smiled a bit sadly and invited me inside. The inside of the house was just as fancy. The entrance had high ceilings, and everything was nicely decorated. My sister-in-law, Sil, Haley, and her 11-year-old son, Jake, were there too. I gave them a friendly greeting. Sil, much like her mom, never seemed to be a fan of mine. I couldn't figure out if it was a personal issue or just to make her mom happy, but she rarely engaged with me. MIL informed me that Phil was out with his friends, so she had invited Haley and her son over to spend some quality time with them. I nodded, trying to be polite, and attempted to strike up a conversation with Sil's son by asking how school was going for him. While we were discussing the boys' school, MIL suddenly shifted the conversation to her recent clothing purchases. She mentioned how she had wanted me to come over so I could give her some advice on her new wardrobe. This caught me off guard because she never sought my advice on anything before. I tried to hide my surprise and responded with a polite, "Oh, that's nice. I'd be happy to help." It felt a bit strange, given our history, but I decided to see the positive side and embrace the opportunity to bond over something as simple as fashion. She seemed pleased with my response and led the way towards what she proudly referred to as her pride and joy, the newly built walk-in closet. As we approached the impressive display of clothes, shoes, and accessories, I couldn't help but appreciate the lavish collection she had amassed. While I was admiring the outfits, MIL eagerly began showing me different pieces, asking for my opinion on colors, styles, and accessories. It was a bit surreal, given our rocky history, but I tried my best to be helpful and provide thoughtful suggestions. My MIL then encouraged me to look through her closet and that she would be right back. I nodded and was checking out her new clothes when I heard the pattering of feet running behind me. Before I could even look back, with mischievous laughter, Sil's son, Jake, gave me a push, causing me to stumble into the closet, and swiftly locked the door behind me. I fell face first into the closet. My head and teeth hurt with the impact. I couldn't comprehend at first what had just happened. The initial shock gave way to a sense of confinement and panic as I realized that Jake had turned off the light switch which was outside the closet door and had locked me in. I was enveloped in darkness and felt claustrophobic. Shocked and terrified, I began banging on the closet door, desperately calling out to MIL and Sil for help. However, my pleas seemed to fall on deaf ears, or perhaps they were conveniently ignoring my distress. I fumbled for my phone, hastily switching on my phone's flashlight. Anxiety crept in as I noticed my dwindling battery, making me worried that my phone might die before I could escape the confined closet. You see, I have had an irrational fear of darkness ever since I was a child. I had locked myself by mistake in my grandmother's closet while playing hide and seek with her, and my grandmother, who was hard of hearing given her age, had taken an agonizing hour to finally find me stuck in the closet crying and screaming. The sheer terror of that moment lingered, leaving me with an irrational fear that surfaced whenever I found myself enveloped in darkness. I continuously attempted to reach out to Mil and Sil for assistance. Unfortunately, my calls went unanswered, and a growing sense of isolation enveloped me. I was confused as to why they wouldn't pick up my calls even though I could hear them laughing loudly downstairs. In a last-ditch effort, I decided to dial my husband's number, in desperation. After a few rings, he casually answered. Desperation in my voice, I explained the dire situation. Kyle, thank goodness you picked up. Something terrible has happened, and I need your help. Kyle, seemingly unfazed, inquired about what was going on. I proceeded to recount the incident. Your nephew just pushed me and locked me inside the closet at your mom's place. He has switched off the lights. I have been banging on the door, but no one has come to rescue me. You know how terrified I am of dark spaces. Kyle, less sympathetic, retorted, are you seriously calling me in the middle of my work for this? This isn't even an emergency. Just call my mother who is inside the house instead of calling me. Frustrated, I replied that I did call his mother and his sister several times but they were not picking up. I explained how I didn't have a lot of charge on my phone to begin with and switching on my phone's flashlight was also draining my battery more. I begged him to come over and help me as he knew how scared I was of the darkness. I had talked to him at length about this. Kyle, unmoved by what I had just told him, stated, locked in a closet? Seriously? No, I can't come over as I am busy right now, so find someone else to help you. To my dismay, he nonchalantly dismissed my continued plea for help and cut the call short. I was stunned by his reaction. The growing panic within me pushed me to continue banging on the closet door, desperately calling Mil and Sil, but their phones remained stubbornly silent. Feeling trapped and helpless, I decided to call my father-in-law, Phil, since he was now the only person left who I could call. I knew he had been out with his friends, but I had no one else to turn to. The phone rang, and I held my breath, hoping he would answer. He picked up and I nervously explained the situation, revealing that Jake had locked me in the closet, and despite my attempts to reach out to others, no one was responding. He immediately assured me that he would make his way back home as quickly as possible and was shocked that Mil and Sil couldn't hear me all this while. After what felt like an eternity, I heard voices outside. I could recognize my Phil yelling something and he seemed to be directing someone to unlock the closet door. My anxiety began to subside as I realized help was finally on its way. The door creaked open, and I squinted against the sudden light. Sil and Phil stood there, wearing a mix of concern and frustration on their faces. I came out of the closet a bit disoriented but grateful for the release from that confined space. Phil asked Mil why I was locked in her closet and she started to feign innocence. I recounted the incident to everyone, detailing how Jake had pushed me into the closet and locked it. However, both Mil and Sil scoffed at my words, dismissing them entirely. They insisted that Jake would never do something like that. Frustrated and angry, I questioned why they hadn't come to check on me or respond to my banging on the door. Their excuse was that they were in the backyard, where Mil was showing Haley and Jake her new rose garden. Jake was peeking from the door, so I directed my anger at him and started to question him about why he would lock me inside, but Sil interrupted me. She told me that her son would never do such a thing and started to claim that I must have closed the door myself, and the key must have fallen out. Their blatant lies left me beside myself with frustration and disbelief, as it still didn't explain how the lights got turned off then. My Phil tried to calm me down, and I knew that regardless of what I said, Mil and Stu would continue to defend each other. Defeated and hurt, I returned home. I called my mother on my way, apologizing that I couldn't come and pick Debbie up for the night and she might have to stay over at their place. I was trembling with shock and my mother knew that something was wrong, but I did not have the energy to tell her at the moment what had just happened. I reached home and waited for my husband to return so I could confront him about what his family had done to me. However, to my disbelief, when I recounted the incident to him during dinner, he berated me for overreacting and started accusing me of being childish. He insisted that this was a ridiculous accusation to make about his family. He refused to believe that his nephew could have locked me inside the closet and his mother and sister had knowingly refused to help me. He continued to justify his action on why he couldn't come to help me, saying that he wasn't at my beck and call, so I needed to be more understanding. With everyone gaslighting me, I started to doubt myself. In an attempt to avoid further conflict, I chose not to argue with him any further. I retreated to bed, enveloped by a profound loneliness, struggling to understand what had happened. The weight of the incident pressed heavily on my chest, and the feeling of being dismissed and misunderstood by my husband lingered. I knew that what had happened to me wasn't merely a prank, it was intentional, calculated, and deeply humiliating, since everyone pretty much had an idea that I was afraid of the dark. The following day, while I was at home grappling with the emotional aftermath of the previous day's ordeal, I received a TikTok link from my cousin. She asked if the video featured me. Opening the link, I was quickly horrified to see that my nephew, Jake, had recorded the entire incident and shamelessly posted it for his followers on TikTok. He was clearly telling his followers how he wanted to prank me, and locking me inside the dark closet was the perfect plan. He hid the camera in a corner and then ran to push me inside. My blood boiled in anger seeing his laughter. Infuriated, I shared the video in our family chat, demanding that everyone now owe me an apology since I had proof. I also wrote to Sil that she needed to get Jake to delete the video immediately. Instead of acknowledging the severity of the situation, Mil brushed it off, and instead told me that this was really funny to watch. She said that she had not seen anything more hilarious than this and claimed that boys will be boys. Sil joined in with her and insisted that I shouldn't be bothered by the video and just let this go, as Jake had played a harmless prank on me anyway. I warned them that if Jake didn't remove this video I would be going the legal way. Mil replied back saying that I was just being too much right now and that I needed to chill out and learn to be a part of the family. Fed up with their lack of empathy, I decided to take matters into my own hands and teach them all a lesson. I called the cops immediately and provided them with the evidence of the incident. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, they agreed to give Sil a visit to question her about why her 11-year-old child had a TikTok account and was posting such prank videos by pushing people into closets. Later, Sil called me angrily asking if I seriously had the audacity to file a complaint against her. I told her that I had and that I was willing to take this to court. She started yelling at me some more, but I quickly told her that I was recording the conversation and would be happy to give it to my lawyer. She quickly shut up after that. So Ida for teaching my husband's family a lesson for locking me inside the closet for over an hour? Update 1. In just a few hours, I have received thousands of comments and I am glad to see that a majority of you understand why I decided to involve the police. I have been receiving multiple calls from my in-laws who are asking me to withdraw my statement to the police. No official case has been filed yet as my nephew is still a child, so the police are investigating to assess and determine the appropriate course of action. My husband, who had no idea about this, erupted when he came back from work. He had tried calling me during the day, but I had been busy with the police, but when he was back, I knew we were going to have this conversation. Kyle is convinced that what I have done has totally destroyed the family and is saying that I shouldn't be so childish as to overreact over such harmless things. He continues to believe that Jake is just a child, hence he shouldn't be punished for this. I have talked with my parents and my sister about this. My family knows about my phobia for dark spaces, hence they are shocked that no one came to rescue me, and more importantly that my husband isn't advocating for me. My dad had a strong word with my husband, telling him that if I had called him for help while stuck in the dark closet, then it should have been his responsibility to either come to help me or immediately call his parents to get me out. The fact that he didn't do either of these things doesn't sit right with me or my family. Thanks to everyone's comments, I can see that my husband and his family's dismissive attitude has been going on for a long time and I have been blind to it. I will continue to update you when there is any further development. Update 2. It's been a week since my last update and there has been a major development. You see, Sil's husband, Vic, who was out of town, recently returned and he found out about what had happened between me and Jake. He completely lost it and asked my nephew to immediately take down the video and apologize to me personally. When Sil tried to defend her son's actions, Vic threatened to kick him out if he ever disrespected others like that. This was all told to me by Vic when he visited me. I agreed to meet up in the hopes that I could get to the bottom of this incident. Vic came to our place with Jake, who looked sad as if he had probably been scolded the entire time. Vic looked at him sternly as Jake immediately started to apologize to me as soon as we sat down to talk. He then started telling me that even though he did push me into the closet, it wasn't entirely his fault. I looked at him curiously and so did Vic. Jake went on to reveal that he would talk to Mil about his TikTok account as well as forward her several prank videos which his friends would play on other people. Once, she started to tell him how it would be a good idea to try it on someone in real life. Jake told her that he didn't think it was a good idea to try it on his family members, but Mil urged him, saying that because I wasn't technically his family since I was just married to my husband, then that meant he could definitely try out those pranks on me and not feel guilty about it. I was shocked to hear this. Vic asked Jake if he was lying and trying to dodge responsibility as this was a huge accusation to make, but Jake started weeping, telling us that we were welcome to check his phone, where he and Mil did indeed have a conversation regarding this. He showed us those chats and I was absolutely horrified and disgusted. For someone her age to incite a child to engage in such actions simply because she disliked me was truly appalling. Having heard enough, I promptly saved those screenshots to my phone and emphatically advised Jake against following her suggestions, emphasizing that it was the wrong course of action. Jake nodded solemnly. Vic, equally taken aback, expressed his dismay, stating how sickening it was, making him reconsider allowing his child to be around my mother-in-law. Understandingly, I nodded as he continued, expressing regret for not being present to prevent Jake's actions that day. He urged me to not go through with the case and retract my statement with the police since Jake had spoken the truth. Vic was clearly afraid of the impact this would have on his child's life. I assured them that I would discuss the matter with my lawyer and the police, on the condition that Jake never uploaded the video again or retained a copy of it. Jake assured me that he had indeed deleted the video and that he had no copy of it remaining. Since this conversation with Vic and Jake, I have started questioning my entire relationship with Mil. It's pretty clear now that she was behind the attack and encouraged a child to do her dirty deed so that she could get away with it. I can't allow myself to be around her ever again, as I don't know what else she might do to me if she already dislikes me this much. Update 3. Hello guys. It's been 4 months since my last update. I have moved out of my husband's place and I am currently staying with my parents. As updated previously, my evil Mil was behind everything. When I confronted her about it, she refused to accept her mistakes even after I showed her the screenshots. She tried to accuse my nephew, saying that he must have manipulated them and photoshopped it. Her lies quickly fell apart once I threatened that I would pursue this legally if she didn't admit her mistakes. Me then begrudgingly admitted that she had pre-planned this with my nephew, and when she saw that I had come alone to visit her, she thought this would be the perfect time to play the prank on me. She continued to say how Sil was in on it too and that they had enjoyed hearing my scream for help. She begged me to not pursue this further, saying that she would never do this to me again. Fortunately, for me, I had recorded our entire conversation, so I simply ended the call with her and forwarded the voice recording to our group chat so that everyone could hear what Mil had admitted. I sent a text to Sil saying that I had never expected her to go so low and that I hoped her son would turn out to be a better human being than her. As for my husband, our relationship just became worse and worse every day. Even with the screenshots and voice recording of his own mother admitting her mistake, my husband never once apologized to me for what his family had put me through. I think seeing my family rallying behind me really made me understand that this was not me overreacting and that what had happened to me was in fact a big deal. Although I did decide to not take any legal action, I didn't want to forgive and forget what the family had done to me. There was no going back after this, and with my husband continuing to support them, there was nothing left for me to fight for. I tried to save my marriage, but when your own partner supports his mother's evil actions regardless of your feelings, then you start to slowly realize that you deserve better than this. I moved out so that we could eventually start our divorce proceedings. He wasn't even remotely surprised about this and didn't fight me when I announced to him that I wanted a divorce. I won't lie about this, as it has been extremely hard to go through this. I genuinely loved my husband and thought I would grow old with him, but these last few months have been eye-opening and I deserve to put myself first. I am really glad that everyone in the comment section and my family made me see the truth about my husband and his family.